Hello and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. As usual, I'm joined by Nathan, and on today's episode, we have Boro's second defeat of the season to dissect. Very much a game of similar themes that have been cropping up on the podcast, cropping up in Boro's performances over the last few games. I think it's fair to say after last week, we were hoping for a bit of a reaction, a bit of more confidence, a bit more sign of some kind of attacking output. And yeah, yesterday we've absolutely kind of had a bit of a continuation of, I guess, signs that have been creeping up, as I say, for the last few games. Nathan, it was by all accounts a game that, as a Middlesbrough fan of any age really, travelling to Watford away, that it's never going to be just a walk in the park. But I think, me personally, I know we spoke about it last podcast, I felt, okay, Rob Edwards has come out after the Wrexham game, even after the Sheffield Wednesday game, taken accountability, openly said, I overthought it, I got it wrong. And yet yesterday, I'm not so sure the team selection, he got it wrong. Maybe he's one kind of member of the 11. But it felt very much, as I say, a continuation of the last two games.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. But I think it's been across the whole season, if I'm honest, really. If you want to talk about the attacking output, I don't think that we create anywhere near enough in games from open play, especially. I mean, just sort of briefly talking about yesterday's game, our best chance that threatens the Watford goal really is a free kick from 25, 30 yards out from that target. And in open play, we were really, well, anonymous, really. We didn't create anything of note until we were 3-0 down, and we had a couple of opportunities later on in the game, but the game's absolutely been and gone by then. Watford are happy to just shut up shop a little bit and play on the break, which that was their plan from the outside. Looking in anyway, and yeah, they've absolutely done us all over. Yeah, we'll talk about the team, which obviously we looked better last week, going back to a back three in the second half against Wrexham. So we've gone with that yesterday afternoon. Three in midfield, Brown, Morris, and Hackney. The wing backs in there as well, and then the two up front. Obviously, last week in the second half, it was Conway and Strelec, and in this one, it's Conway and Bergzorg, which, yeah, a little bit of an interesting one there. Obviously, Bergzorg, for the most part in his Boro career, has played obviously off the left-hand side, sometimes off the right, and not really up front. And yesterday just didn't really impact the game in what we would have wanted him to do. I think a lot of people have been quite critical in saying that he's always offside. He has to make those runs when we are breaking from our own half.
Look, I'm all for him making runs, but yesterday, I praised him against Ipswich for them runs, and he did it very well. But to have more offside flags go up against you than meaningful impacts in a game is just inexcusable
But
for a striker at that level.
but is it just him, or is it a question of your midfielders who we'll go back to a more general point on this midfield, by the way. Obviously, Alan Brown's come into this midfield, but previously in the first 4, 5, 6 games of the season, it was Morris and Hackney. Since Aidan Morris, after the Sheffield United game, in which obviously we'd won the first 4 games of the season, and Morris came out in BBC T's interview and said that me and Hayden think we're the best midfield in the division. Apart from Morris and Hackney against West Brom, which I thought that were pretty good, Morris more so than Hackney, and then obviously Hackney against Ipswich. I think they've both been really poor, pretty much since that point. Morris especially. Morris has been pretty much shocking since Portsmouth.
Morris, I was just about to say, we didn't really touch on it last week because, well, we touched on Morris's performance, but not so much the fact that Aidan Morris ultimately found himself out of the team because of international duty and the fact that he come back late. Brown took his chance against Ipswich and against Sheffield Wednesday. But ultimately, even before the break, Morris was dreadful against Portsmouth and was taken off. He had a poor game against Southampton and was taken off even before then. Look, I still think we're absolutely, in terms of three midfielders in the Championship, we're right up there. It's a complete luxury to have three players like that, and I'm sure many other teams in the division would snap your hand off for our midfield choices that we have, and we're not even including Kante in that. But the fact is, Aidan Morris hasn't been good enough for a number of weeks now, and really, other than reputation, has kind of not really got back into the team on anything other than that.
No, no, and obviously just sort of in the team because of in this instance we're playing three in midfield and we haven't got another central midfielder on the bench. But yeah, my point would be your best midfielder in the division, any chance of them releasing the ball quicker away from home. We're looking to play on the break, Bergzog's best asset, and the reason that he's in the team up front yesterday afternoon is because obviously he's a physical presence and he can hold the ball up, but more so to running behind. They've got so much space in behind them, and I'm not saying that Matty Pollock and Kevin Kebben aren't like quite quick because they both are. Kebben especially is quite quick, and I just felt that yesterday in games when you're playing away from home, when Watford are going to counter-attack you, when you're able to stop those counter-attacks and try and then counter the
The counter.
counter-attacks,
Yeah.
yeah, you need to just release the ball a little bit quicker than we were, and we struggled with that. And it looks like Bergzorg had a really poor game yesterday, which I'm not saying he was good by any stretch of the imagination, but I just think that your midfield don't help him by not releasing that ball a little bit quicker either. But yeah, I thought that in the early stages of the game, you could just see that we were they
We
were
had, yeah, I was just going to say, sorry to jump in there, Nathan. We had plenty of the ball, and I think it's easy sometimes, and I'm guilty of it sometimes as well, to watch a game and the team that you're supporting, and it's almost like we've got loads of territory. We spent the majority of the first half in Watford's half, up until they started scoring. And it's almost like I repeat what I said in last week's podcast. It feels like the training drill where if you've ever done it, where you have a defensive third, a midfield third, and then you have an attacking third, and going from defense to attack, going from defense to a midfield, sorry, is absolutely fine. You get into that zone, and then you've got to play the pass into the attacking third and get into that attacking zone. And at that point, we just freeze. We have no real obvious patterns of play, and it just felt like yesterday, unless you've got a real kind of magician playing in that three in midfield, and Hackney was probably the more advanced of the three throughout the full game, really. Precision passes and unlocking defenses isn't really his kind of main attribute or something that he's particularly great at. So when you're playing against a team as we were yesterday that were well drilled and as you've put it, they knew exactly what we were going to do, which was just basically run out of options centrally and try and get it out to the wing backs. We just kind of, as I say, got into that attacking zone numerous times. For the first 15 minutes. It felt like everything was played on the edge of their box, but once it got there, there was nothing.
yeah, but I think as you say, we try and force it through the middle quite often. That's where our better players usually are in the middle of the pitch. Obviously, I know we talked about Morris being poor in recent weeks, but you would say that he's one of our better players on the ball. Hackney, obviously, you'd argue he's our best player, and you try and play through those now, which we weren't doing in the early part of the season, but playing through the middle of the pitch. And Watford knew that they were compact in the middle of the pitch, and in the end, they were happy to just let us have it out wide in wide positions for Britain and Target. Britain and Target, as competent as they are as players and as decent as they are on the ball, they haven't got bags of pace to be able to knock it past a fullback and deliver across into the box. Hence why Watford are so comfortable just to sit in there, let us have it. We'll then probably circle it back either into midfield with Hackney on one side and Morris on the other, or circle it back to Ayling and try it and try and get it round to the other side. And again, not really be quite penetrative through the middle of the pitch. But yeah, Watford got the shape correct in that first half, especially, and found themselves 2 goals to the good. First one, our own sort of attacking position after a set play. We're in a good position around the edge of the box to try and get a shot off or create an opportunity, force an opening. We don't do that. The ball breaks. Loser knocks it out wide to Bar, who they just left, as they say. They left him high and wide quite often while we overcommitted, which I don't get. Why are you overcommitting away from home? We are the team that is the as the away side should be the team that is reserved in the game. You have to put the impetus, or it's usually this way anyway, but the impetus is usually on the home team to try and offer something in a game. And Watford were quite happy to sit there, and it only took 15 minutes for Boro to overextend themselves enough to force an opportunity for Watford to get us on the break. And Barr does really well. We said last week and earmarked him as one of the danger men for Watford. Drives up the line. He's quicker than any player that we've got. And to be fair, throughout the full game, caused us loads of problems, even like running into central areas and just smashing Brown and Hackney and Morris all over the park as well. Strong, quick, direct, and yeah, flies up the line, delivers a great cross. And the reason it's a great cross is because Loser escapes Hackney. Hackney's looking over his shoulder, expects him to travel to the back post. Loser makes a run to the back post, checks back. He's middle of the goal, easy finish, tidy, 1-0. Borough already in dangerous territory at 1-0 down. If we go 2-0 down, we're absolutely dead and buried because we don't score 2 goals in a game usually. And yeah, I mean, we had the free kick in the gap after 1-0, but yeah, the second goal, they have the ball on a throw in at the left back area, switch it out to the right back in 2 passes, and Ngakia drives forward. No one gets anywhere near him. He crosses the ball in, and Kerem Gard gets across Luke Ayling. And to be fair, I think it's a really good finish to steer that across his body into the far corner, and that's game done 2-0.
Yeah, it felt like kind of, as you say, in quick succession. It was just like two bullets to the chest, and it was like, right, well, that's that then. And it was as disappointed as I've been, to be honest, in terms of. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to half time because we've seen numerous times this season Rob Edwards has been rightfully praised because he's made substitutions and been proactive at halftime. Even in games that we haven't been getting beaten, he's taken the initiative and made subs at halftime and not been afraid to make just one or two. He's made three, four, five. It was blatantly not working yesterday. The five, we said last week, I'm not going to kind of, flip flop around. I still think Borough look at their best in a five. I think in terms of midfield, Rob Edwards, for want of a better word, needs to grow up here and basically just decide who his two is because I don't think the three particularly suits us either. If he wants to play Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney, it's fine. It would be harsh on Alan Brown, but just pick two because the three yesterday, it just become, yeah, we have loads of the ball, but we don't do anything with it. And I think I spoke last week, and look, physicality wise, yes, you could throw that at him. You need a Nipan, you need a McGree, you need someone who is basically not in the team as complete, you know, Hackney for his running power. He's combative. Alan Brown, combative, good on the ball. Aidan Morris is really good on the ball, but it's not that kind of delicate, technical player that's going to pick up a pocket and unlock a door. With that three in midfield, I don't want to say it's far too functional, but there's no Maverick in there. There's no one that's going to do something where you kind of go, how has he seen that? And yeah, I mean the formation and obviously the substitutions. The initial point that I was making. Why has he waited? The one time in well, this full season really, where he's gone, actually, I'm going to let this, give it 10 or 15 minutes and then see how it unfolds. And perhaps more worryingly for me, I've read his comments after the game and he said, I didn't want to change it at halftime because I felt like we were in the ascendancy. Now, look, we had lots of territory and lots of possession, but in terms of the way I would interpret being in the ascendancy is really putting their goalkeeper under a lot of pressure or forcing him into a lot of saves. We didn't do any of that. We had lots of the ball, but we were doing nothing with it. So that's not being in the ascendancy to me. And it just felt like, yes, okay, it goes 3-0 and we'll talk about that. Ultimately, it's offside, but the game's dead and buried at 2 anyway. But it felt like from half time, you wait that long to make substitutions. And I would honestly say that even at 2-0, I felt like, yes, it's probably game done, but we have a bit of a chance because we're going to have a full 45 minutes. And then to not see any substitutions, to see Bergson come out for the second half, to see the same three in midfield come out for the second half, I was just absolutely bewildered, to be honest. I really, it's the first time, and I know he admitted last week about him getting it wrong and having that weird feeling in his stomach. Well, for the second week in a row now, from Saturday to Saturday, I feel like Rob Edwards is almost the same with Morris last week. Didn't take Morris off at halftime last week, went to the three in midfield, and it worked to an extent against Wrexham. But down to his decision making, he's gone, I'll keep Morris on, I'll not haul him off because it makes me look daft. Yesterday, I kind of get the same feeling. It's like a almost, and I'm not kind of going in on Rob Edwards. We're second in the league, but it was just infuriating because it felt like we just went at half time. We're 2-0 down. We've got a game on Tuesday night, and we're just happy to sort of not let it get like a cricket score, have the ball, and not really kind of impose ourselves on the game. And that for me is pretty inexcusable. You've still got 45 minutes to go and try and at least get something out of the game.
Yeah, but as you say, that's your opinion. His opinion was that we're in the ascendancy with that current 11, hence why he's kept it the same. I mean, we weren't. We didn't create anywhere near what being in the ascendancy would mean. And then obviously you get sucker punched straight after half time, pretty much with a great strike from Dumbier that's probably going in anyway, comes off Keramgard's back of his head, back of his shoulder, and he's offside and it shouldn't count. But it's one that just buries you. It's a little bit fortunate for them, but you could argue that they deserved it really from their perspective. They played a really good game. They deserved the 3 points, took the chances well, and yeah, just we were just really, really poor, weren't we? If we're being totally honest, we didn't offer anywhere near enough. Didn't offer anything until the subs were made, and I'm not a fan of this making five changes, four changes at a time. You can talk about, and what we spoke about last season, where Carrick was just reluctant to make any change, and when he did, it was taking Engel off for Giles or whatever. Whereas this season, yeah, okay, we've seen moments of being proactive, but and last week you can sort of get it. It gets you something out the game. Making five changes at 3-0 down, taking off a centre half, two central midfielders, and two forwards, and then changing shape completely, playing McGree in midfield with Alan Brown,
Yeah.
and just playing four up front. I'm just not having it. It's not a good look at all. It absolutely screams of desperation. And I know you are desperate at 3-0 down. You're sort of just hoping for something, but it wasn't to be. And this team at the moment is struggling. Well, I say this team as in the management team are struggling to find their best 11. They're struggling to find the best formation, not even just game by game, but half by half, if you want to go at the Wrexham game. And in the end, we keep flip flopping between a 3 and a 4 because we've got two good fullbacks that are probably better in a 4 than they are in a 5 because they're just more stable and they don't have the responsibility to get forward as often. But we can't play a 4 because the options that we've got to play on the wing are diabolical, really. Whitaker scored 2 goals in the last couple of games and has sort of, you can argue, had an upturn in form because he scored 2 goals. But his overall performances have still been pretty poor. Bergzorg gave us a really good game against Ipswich. Obviously sets the goal up against Sheffield Wednesday. Diabolical against Wrexham.
It's
Diabolical
just
yesterday.
it's just Delano Bergsorg all over though, isn't it? I mean, I think he's at an age now as a player, and Middlesbrough fans, Huddersfield fans probably give him an unfair rap if anything. But I mean, their season was a disaster that year. He's a good option to have off the bench. He's a might have a good game one in every four, but he shouldn't be getting consistent starts for a team that have aspirations of going up in the championship, whether that be in the playoffs or the top two.
So the point is we can't go with a 4 because our wing options are poor. So now we're in a situation where, okay, where were we best and where do our options fit? Like we can't be going with square pegs in round holes. So you'll just have to accept that Target and Britain are going to have to offer you a little bit more going forward than they are currently. But in that, if they're going to get forward, you need someone round covering in wide areas, especially in the next couple of games as well, where both teams are going to play wide players. You've got options that are more suited to playing in and through the middle of the pitch in Nipan, McGree. I'd argue Whitaker's probably better in the middle of the pitch than he
Yeah,
is
I
out
was
wide.
just going to say, I know you've spoken about his goals, but actually, I think his best performances have actually come when he's played in one of those two withdrawn roles behind Conway.
And I think Strelec is one of those that's slightly withdrawn as well. So I think your idea has to be you can keep your 3. You need to start offering more from your wing backs if you can possibly get more out of them than you're getting at the minute because we're going to try and force through the middle of the pitch time and time again, but we have to have something going down the flanks, or else we're dead and buried.
If
We
you, if
don't
you
have
look
anything.
at, yeah, I was just going to say, if you look at any of the average positions from any of Borough's games really this season, it's not really in their makeup to get to the byline and, as you say, take on a fullback and whip across in the box. But Borough's fullbacks or Borough's wingbacks, they're more or less only a few yards into the opposition half in terms of an average position. Sometimes you're seeing them finish a 90-minute game with an average position of pretty much being the halfway line. Now, if you're going to create chances, or if you're not going to play what I think is Borough's best formation and when they've looked the best this season with the two in behind a number nine, at least then you've got two sort of functional midfielders, whether it be a Morris and a Brown or whoever. You've got two in front of them that their sole jobs really are to create chances and supply the number nine.
Well,
Without them, and also with wing backs that have an average position of maybe a few yards into the opposition half, it's no wonder you're not creating anything.
yeah, yeah, and with those 2 players, what they give you is the option to pass out wide, double up out wide with a wing back. And also a midfielder as well. A central midfielder needs to get across and provide something out there. But also if they play a ball into a wing back to deliver a cross into the box, them tens have to be breaking into the box. If we're going to be a team like we were yesterday, where we crossed balls into the box to try and hit Bergzorg and Conway, first of all, I'd with whoever's playing up front, whether it's Conway, Strelec, I couldn't give a shit. Tell them if they stand at the back post, they're fined. Get across that near post, sharpish, sharpish. All the best strikers in this world get across the near post rather than just standing at the back post waiting for a tap in. It's got to miss about 4 players to get to the back post. It's just unfathomable
If
that.
if just on your point, and I know we joked about it before we started recording, but if this was Rob Edwards' eventual plan to go 3-5-2 and lug balls into the box, you might as well have just gone out and signed Carlton Morris. Because at least he would have give you something in terms of just scrapping with centre halves and getting knockdowns. Our forward line, none of them, even in their top 10 attributes, heading would be anywhere near. So
No, but you can get low crosses into the box, and
no,
I, I
you
actually I
can't.
actually think I actually think players like Conway, if we're going with low
No, you
crosses into the
can't. You
box from wing
can.
backs,
Conway's
Con
Conway's actually good at that. That
yeah,
I was just about to say, getting across the front post. How many times last season did we see Doak get in front of his man, get to the byline, whip across in, and Tommy Conway was making that run, drifting from out to in to the near post. That's absolutely fine, but it's hard to put a low driven cross into the box when you're a few yards into the half. If you're crossing from that deep, you can't make low crosses. You've got to get into attacking scenarios
you
and get
do.
into the final third to be able to deliver those type of
You do.
crosses.
That's what the conversation is about the wing backs being further up the pitch, and with your number tens, they have to break into the box as well. You can't just be aiming at Conway, who I know you've just said he runs to the front post. I'm going to argue that he doesn't. He doesn't run at the front post.
Yeah, because
He runs to the back post
what has he got to run to the front post to?
for a
How many
delivery.
how many
Delivery.
yeah, but if you're
It's this.
crossing
Chris. It's the same for last season. If he wasn't running at the front post last season either, if you look at the chances that he scored last year, there was a couple of efforts. The one that stands out is him missing from 2 yards at Stoke at the back post.
but
Get across
even
the front.
right, QPR goal, QPR away last season. Ben Doak gets to the line. Yes, okay. He done it time and time and time again. And
Yeah,
yes, he does have a tendency to sometimes drift to the back post. But my point is, Tommy Conway is more than capable of getting across a defender and flicking it in at the near post.
he is, but he needs to offer it more.
No,
That's what I'm
he
saying.
does. He does. I agree with that. But it's there's no need for him to make that run if we're crossing it from the halfway line. How many times do you see Britain line up across and I'm thinking, well, what's
Yeah,
he
I
trying to
know.
hit here?
Yeah, I know, but we're sort of thinking in the change of formation to play 5-2-2-1 with your two tens. If you play your two tens and they are able to hold the ball, and if you can get more out of your wing backs, as in find them in positions where they have overextended themselves to get to the byline or further up the pitch into a crossing position, then that pass needs to be out wide, and your number tens have to be breaking into the box. If we're going to play this way with wing backs, we need to fill the box with bodies, and we don't do it enough. We have
Yeah,
wing backs crossing balls into the box at times with Conway and Bergzorg yesterday to hit. Both, they're not going to head the ball, and two, you've got two players there in the box. We have no midfielders breaking. Morris and Brown were further back. Hackney is usually the one playing it out wide to a wing back, and they have defending the two centre halves. The two central midfielders are usually on the edge of the box, being compact. Fullback on the other side is defending as well. So they've got five players in the box up against two of ours. The likelihood of scoring is nothing. So the point is, if we're going to play this way with five at the back, two in midfield, which I think from now, I know you spoke earlier about whether it's Hackney or Brown or Hackney or Morris. I think it has to be Hackney and Brown based on Morris's form. It has to be Hackney and Brown, and then your two tens. I think for me, the players that I'm going with, and look, it's difficult because I think that out of all the players that we bought, I think McGree's better than any of them in one of those 10 positions. But you can't overextend him because he'll just pull up injured again. So for now, it's going to have to be Strelec. You need to give him a run in the team. You have to give him a run in the team consistently. He has it. So he played a half against Sheffield Wednesday and got taken off. He played a half against Wrexham. He came on with 20 minutes yesterday. What's he meant to do? He's coming into a team and trying to find his way, and He's finding his way in and out the team constantly. I think you have to have Strelec as one of those tens because I think what he can offer you is his ability to hold on to the ball. I think he's already a step ahead of a couple of our players that usually play in that position to be either able to play a pass off in behind to your centre forward, off to your other 10, off to a midfielder and spinning behind, or get a shot off. I think he offers you enough. Conway, I think as much as he has been ineffective in terms of the chance. Like he hasn't had loads of service in the last couple of weeks. I think his running from the front and his harrying is just about enough to keep him in the team. And obviously, if we're talking creating more chances from wide areas, Conway on one-touch finishes, I think you're probably having him over anyone else than we've currently got to play up front. And your other number 10, as I say, it would be McGree if you get him fully fit. However, in the meantime, Whitaker or Nepan, take your pick.
I think, to be honest, and this is going to sound like a mental statement, really, the worst thing that could have happened to Middlesbrough this season was the performance against Ipswich, because it's almost given them, or kind of added on an extra couple of games of additional food for thought for Rob Edwards that he probably didn't need. And we've spoken about it. Middlesbrough were really good on the night, and it's by all means probably one of their best performances of the season. However, the way Ipswich played, like you said, totally agree, and I'm sure anyone listening would do. There's going to be probably you can count on one hand, probably three fingers, the amount of teams that are going to play against Middlesbrough this season and back themselves, particularly at the Riverside, and back themselves to go, no, you're going to worry about us. We're not going to worry about you. Playing a four in them games, fine. But for majority of games this season, I still think the five's going to suit us. And what I mean by that could have been the worst thing that could have happened to us. I know it sounds stupid because we won the game, but it's given up until the Portsmouth game, we were being effective, and there was concerns growing, but we were still more often than not coming on the right hand side of results and finding a way, playing with the formation that we've both just talked about there, with the two withdrawn and the two in midfield, and then the nine. It started going really wrong in terms of that formation, I guess, when Kali Sen come off the bench and made two really big impacts. And Rob Edwards was kind of forced into a position where he went, right, well, I can't drop Conway. I'm going to have to play Cali Sen, which meant that Conway dropped into the 10, where he was completely ineffective with whoever alongside him, and Cali Sen played. We get to Portsmouth, eventually get found out because we've got little to no creativity. Tommy Conway's playing as a 10 again. Sen looks fairly ineffective. We then go to a 4, look good against Ipswich, I think largely to do with the opposition. We looked all right at Sheffield Wednesday in terms of chance creation, but you're playing against Sheffield Wednesday who are on minus points, and the majority of their teams made up with has-beens and academy kids. And then since then, you've got Wrexham in yesterday's game, and you've had two different shapes, all in the space of 3 games. Rob Edwards for me, and it's easy for me to say, it's easy for there's countless other people saying it. He just needs to settle on a formation because it can't be easy. We're saying from a manager's perspective, but even from a player's perspective as well, it can't be easy playing 3 different formations. Yes, I know Pep Guardiola probably does it in game. They drill to know, right, okay, he goes into midfield or he inverts. But to play 3 different formations, I know he always says about the principles and the core values of what he wants his team to do, and that shouldn't make it look that different, even if there is a different formation. But Middlesbrough just look, they don't. Yesterday in particular, they don't really know what they look like they're meant to be doing to be creating chances. They have such limited attacking phases of play and styles of play to generate chances. And as you put it last week as well, better chances that were going into games, and even if you've got a good defense, you're not going to win many games by not scoring goals. And I just think, even touching on the Aidan Morris debate, I think Rob Edwards, even if you're going to be pragmatic and then change it at halftime, that's fine. But don't play a three in midfield to keep Aidan Morris happy. Don't play Tommy Conway as a 10 to keep Tommy Conway happy because Cali Sen's coming to the team. Just play whatever you think is your best team. And if it upsets individuals, then unfortunately that's just a matter of having a big squad. Eventually, if they're good enough, they'll work their way back into the team. Alan Brown's worked his way into the team, and you would have thought when, as you say, when Aidan Morris was making those comments about being the two best in midfield, even all of us, we were singing their praises. We would have went, there's no chance that Alan Brown's going to get into the team. But because he's a good player, he's found his way in, and he should stay in the team. I just think Rob Edwards needs to almost not have balls by making five substitutions when you're 3-0 down. That's not balls. Having balls is actually going Aidan Morris and Tommy Conway, for example, you're both on the bench because I feel like this is our best team at this current moment.
Yeah, yeah, and you obviously can't sort of in Conway's instance playing him in the 10 if you're going to play Sen because he's in form, scored a couple of goals. You can't sacrifice one of your number 10 positions, which is your creative players, for Conway, who he's not creative. He's the one who's on the end of things, or you'd hope he is anyway. But yeah, I think we've got our first little rant out the way of the season. That have we
I know,
been
yeah.
done?
I was almost like nervous to kind of go in on them a bit today and go in on Rob Edwards because it's important to, and I think I seen a few comments yesterday on social media, funnily enough, about oh well, it's negativity gets clicks and all that. To be honest, ironically, all of our best performing podcasts this season have always been when Boro have won and we've been up a height. So yeah, it's not negativity for negativity's sake. I'm still very much of the opinion that Boro will be there or thereabouts in terms of the top six this season. They've managed to do something which I was so on board with when Rob Edwards was announced and what I was sick of under Michael Carrick, barring yesterday where Watford have scored three from an XG of about zero point 0.2 or something, I don't know. But in terms of being in games, for the most part, Borough are going to be in games this season, and it's probably only going to be a goal or two. Now, they've kind of, I don't want to say mastered, but even for expected goals against, they're right up the top of the league still. Yesterday will have harmed that stat, but in terms of defensive records, it's still fine. That doesn't need to be changed all too much. I just think a bit of consistency, having Riley McGree back, if he can stay fit, which is like with Riley McGree, it almost feels pointless saying if. But I just think a bit of consistency and having going back to Borough's bread and butter of what got them in the position that they're in and what won them the majority of the points this season just feels like the next logical step.
Yeah, I think consistency is one word that's been thrown out, but it's consistency in the formation, consistency in the 11. It's obviously you've got your back five and your midfielders that have built partnerships, but your attacking players are going to look like there's no fluidity whatsoever between the lot of them if they don't have the time on the pitch to be able to build those relationships. And yeah, we'll wait and see. But it's 3 game week. Yeah, we've got an opportunity to make it right, don't we, on Tuesday straight away, which is Leicester. And if I'm honest, I think that this could be a really big opportunity for us where if we get that first goal on Tuesday night, we can play on the break if you want to. We're playing away from home at a team who have currently lost the last 3 games on the spin. They lost yesterday at home to Blackburn, who I think you wouldn't have expected that result looking at the teams and looking at where Blackburn are in the table. But yeah, they're a funny club, Leicester. Obviously, had a lot of success in the last decade. for varying different reasons. I've had varying seasons where they've been outstanding in some and dross in others. But when you think of Leicester City and the Championship, you think of them just coming down, romping it, and getting out and back into the Premier League with ease, really. This time around, they've lost a lot of members of that playing squad from the last time they went up. Players like Dewsbury Hall that were standouts for them, and Vardy, obviously. And now they're in a position where they have got good players. They've got a manager who I think has been given a bit of a reputation in certain circles of championship podcasts and stuff that he's top draw when I'm not so sure. They just seem to be, from everything that I hear, from everything that I see, a team that, okay, they've got patterns of play, which is work it out to the wide players, particularly Fatawu, but they don't necessarily open teams up massively, but they don't mind going a goal ahead or scoring goals in games which are just Fatawu spanking one from 25 yards in off the bar, and they're 1-0 up and they're difficult to break down because they've got some good defenders in there for the level anyway. But yeah, that it's an interesting one. When I've actually looked at the stats for Leicester this season, obviously, as you'd expect, they're a team that you'd think would dominate the ball, and they do. I think they're something like the fourth highest in the division for possession. And to be honest, I think that suits us because we're not great with the ball, as you saw yesterday. Watford gave it up. We got
You,
counter-attacked.
you almost want to say at the opposition, just let them have it. Just you keep the ball and we'll be fine. When we've got too much of the ball, we don't really know what to do with it. So if they're going to keep it, then as you say, it might actually play into Boro's hands a little bit.
Yeah, and as I say, they've got good players, namely Fatawu, obviously Mavididi on the other side as well. But players like Jordan James, Harry Winks, good players for this level in the championship. So it'll be interesting that one, and be interesting to see what Edwards does for that as well. But I think mainly my point is they dominate the ball. They've got good players, but if you limit the supply to Fatawu as best as you possibly can, then you're probably in a good place to get something from the game. And then obviously next Saturday as well, Birmingham, the money bags of the division. They're starting to slowly turn the corner, I think. They obviously won at Preston the other week while the manager was under a little bit of pressure. Follow that up with a defeat against Bristol City, which we'll get onto in a sec. And then they won yesterday 4-0 against Portsmouth, which is a really good result. Didn't expect that. Got good players. Obviously, we know from the summer that they just went and spent heavily, having come up from League One. The owner has made no shying away from the fact that he wants to get through this division and get Birmingham back into the Premier League as quick as possible, and sort of bankrolled it a little bit by spending heavily on some players. And yeah, they've got some good players for the level, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I know you're not his biggest fan either, but Patrick Roberts always in the championship is a good player to have in your squad. Damari
Yes.
Gray, wide threats that are maybe not outstanding for the level, but are good players at championship level and are going to cause you problems. And they've got an abundance of strikers in which they can call on. I mean, I'm just looking yesterday. Kyogo didn't start again. He was one that I was just adamant that was going to score an absolute bag full this season. Hasn't. They've tried Marvin Duksh. I think that's the pronunciation. I just remember the little yellow duck in the pond from the announcement where they went on that week where they announced about 6 players. They've even got old Borough foe Lyndon Dykes coming off the bench, which is an interesting one to say the least. Jason Kumas's son, who had an absolute field day against Lucas Engel last season in the Carabao Cup. And yeah, I mean, they've got, to be fair, in terms of attacking players, they've got a bit of an embarrassment of riches for this level, really. Perhaps not real, like one real X Factor standout player like a Fatawu for Leicester, but loads of quality. But yeah, as you say, they've turned things around a little bit, but I think even in terms of this like mini little run that they've turned the corner on, there's still, and rightfully so, given how much money they've spent, so much pressure on their manager from their owners. And I mean, to be honest, the fact that they've got Amazon cameras following them around at every move probably doesn't help because one defeat feels like the end of the world for them, and then one win feels like they're gonna go the rest of the season unbeaten. It's all probably feeding into the narrative of the whole Hollywood ridiculous Americanization of some of the clubs in the championship. But it's going to be a really tough game regardless.
It is, and I think it's a little bit interesting because we can go back to this, well, almost the start of the podcast where you'd say that the impetus is on the home team to offer something in a game. Watford yesterday sat off in the early stages of the game, scored the goal on the break, grew into it because they were 1-0 up, and then obviously still let Boro have the ball for periods of the game. Boro edge forward into opposition territory, and then Watford spring once again, score the second, and then it's an easy, comfortable day for them. So that's a team playing at home that I'm not sure that how you'd feel about that. It's like a team at home giving up the ball to the away side and sort of showing them a little bit of respect. But evidently it works in some game plans. In this instance with Birmingham, as we've spoken about there, the last three results and the Bristol City one, where they've gone away from home to Bristol City. In the game, Bristol City had 28% possession at home, just let Birmingham have the ball, and all of a sudden, because Birmingham, and it's the same for most championship teams. Like there's a few that stand out over the years that have been
Look
particularly
at
good.
look at Swansea coming to the Riverside, first game of the season. I think they absolutely dominated the ball, and yet we beat them from a set piece. But what you're about to say and what you're insinuating is basically Borough should allow them to have the ball, sit in, and rely on their defensive ability, which the stats don't lie. Borough have a good defensive ability, are good at keeping teams out. If you discount yesterday, do that. I'm not against it. I know some people will say, well, you're the home team. I want my team to go and create and score goals. If we win the game, I don't mind giving up a little bit of territory and springing on them. That's fine by me. The reason that have been happy regarding Rob Edwards' appointment and how he's taken to his role as Borough head coach is he's been fairly pragmatic in most games. And up until this point, it's got us to second in the league. So if he wants to do that and not overthink it and play a four, because I think if we try and match them up and play a four, they'll absolutely play us off the park, then that's fine.
Well, yeah, to a point. But it's teams, as I say, there's some that have stood out over the years that have either come down from the Premier League, set out the stall as right, we're going to dominate the ball against teams, and they're quite happy to play with two centre halves on the halfway line, fullbacks high and wide, midfielders further up the pitch, and leave there just two centre halves up against either one centre forward or two. And Birmingham are one of those teams that are quite confident in the way that they play to leave Newman and Clara on the halfway line and almost take a chance a little bit. And in that Bristol City game, I know they're playing up against a little bit of a physical specimen up front in Sinclair Armstrong, who's big, strong, and very quick as well. But one ball over the top of the pair of them, in behind, one chance, goal, game done, 1-0. Shut up shop. You've got now to break us down. All right, you've signed loads of players from the Championship to play in your team this season, but we're strong defensively. We'll do well to shut you out. And obviously, if you go 1-0 up in the game, they've got to overextend themselves, leaving more gaps. So we'll just wait and see. But I think these two games, and look, it might come back with egg on me face this week when we come and do the podcast next week. But I think these two games probably suit us a little bit more because of these teams are going to dominate the ball. And Edwards, notoriously, his teams don't dominate the ball so far this season in games where we've played away from home and had success. The Millwall one, Norwich, you can let these teams have the ball. We'll be fine.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so. I really hope he doesn't completely overthink it and make sort of six changes on Tuesday night. Regardless of who he picks, if you do know the team before the game kicks off and you're posting it on social media, you're a massive wally, so don't do that. And yeah, other than basically don't leak the team because it plays into the opposition's hands, I don't have anything else really more to add. So yeah, Nathan, thank you ever so much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for your continued support, both on audio platforms and on the YouTube channel. We hope you have enjoyed, for the first time this season, a little bit of a. They've nearly got it out of us, the complete anger and frustration of being a Middlesbrough fan. We've teased it a little bit, haven't gone full throttle, but yes, certainly an interesting week ahead, and I think, as you say, hopefully one that plays into Boro's hands and allows them to do what they did so well in the opening 10 games of the season, really. So, yes, thanks ever so much again for everyone for watching and listening. And that has been another episode of the Boropolis podcast.